Hey, I'm Scotty, and this is Kyle. I'm usually a player, and Kyle, what are you usually?
I'm the Dungeon Master here, pretty much perpetually.
We're going to be taking a look at the new 2024 D&D character sheet. Off the top, Kyle, we should just say we just don't like calling it 2024 D&D character sheet. Really wish they called it
No,
something else.
I wish we either go with 5.5, go with 6th edition, go with something that's a little bit more rolls off the tongue, a little nicer. But what are you gonna do?
D&D 1 we were talking about for a bit, but whatever. That's
Yeah,
totally fine.
right.
Let's pull it up here, Kyle, with our first impressions of the character sheet. Anything you noticed right away about the sheet, good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing is like everything is like cleaner. It looks a lot easier. It's more like eye catching. It's pleasing to the eye. But the big thing for me that is shifted that I like is the breaking out of the skills into their skill tree under the ability score that they're associated with. I know some players may not like that they are no longer in their like classic alphabetical form, which I totally understand. Like a quick glance, it'll be easy to find the ability that you're called on to roll. However, I as a DM like the association of skill to ability score and like what that association is. It doesn't necessarily have an immediate obvious impact, but I like that kind of breakdown. There's like a skill tree kind of gamifying element to it.
Yeah, we're kind of split. Some of us liked it, and then we asked some of the other people in our party, and they said, this might actually be tough, even if you're a new player. Just it was so easy before to be like, oh, from the top, I could just look down and go through alphabetically. Kyle, I thought this was such a great opportunity to do something with nature, maybe put it in wisdom from my druid-loving heart, but we just kept it as is. That's fine. That's okay.
Never gonna change.
Never gonna change it. Something else we noticed, and they talked about in their release video, is now it's just background. They talked about before your character begins as a hero, they're doing it as background and species. So gone is race. Race never really enjoyed that terminology of, and so species now replaces that. You can see that in the top left up there, as well as background, which you can decide on. And we even got species traits down here next to feats.
Yeah, I like the change. Race to species totally makes total sense to shift that terminology. And with background specifically, I like how they're breaking away where your ability scores would come from your species or formerly race, now coming in from your background. That makes so much more sense as a kind of what have you been doing in your life leading up to this adventuring life that you're about to go on as your D&D character. And having a nice concise area to put where your species traits are coming from, what your feats are coming from. And now, if I'm not mistaken, backgrounds will come with a beginning first level feat as well. So there's a perfect section for those.
One of the other things, just tiny things we noticed when we were comparing it to what we're used to with the D&D 5e character sheet, was we used to have on the left-hand side passive perception, passive insight, and passive, what was the last one? Investigation. Now, our rogue in the background, our previous rogue who had the highest investigation, quickly typed in investigation. We just have passive perception right up here on the top right. So that could be interesting for not having a passive insight so readily available.
Yeah, I don't know. I followed the developments as like the Unearthed Arcana would come out as they were, brought out to us to kind of play with and look at. I don't remember off the top of my head whether investigation and insight passes were pulled or not, and whether there's just new rulings that would go around that. However, if that is true, I think that obviously it changes some feat implications there with like observant, and generally as a DM, I like having passive scores to fall back on for lots of different moments. If there's things that you just haven't asked about in a situation, or if there's just someone who does happen to have invested highly into insight and I want to reward that, and someone is lying, but no one else has a good reason to have picked up on it, I can just fall in that passive and give a player a cool moment to highlight something. So I hope that passive insights and passive investigations are still a thing, and where they go in here, TBD. But I like that passive perception is so heavily highlighted because it's something that every DM is constantly, what's your passives again? And like I'm asking every other game what it is. So it's nice to have that kind of front and center alongside initiative, speed, and size.
And it was so fun to always just mess with the players. What's your passive investigation? What's your
It's
passive
this?
Yeah. Just puts them right on edge all the time.
Exactly.
if we look at the next sheet over, we can't see the whole thing. This is just promo material that we got. And so this could change. I doubt it will. We're so close to these starting to be rolled out officially with the pre-order starting. But we can see here spells. Most of this sheet looks like it's going to be dedicated to spells. And then we have appearance, backstory, and personality, languages, equipment, coins. Equipment's a little tiny. That's something we noticed right away. Perhaps the back of these sheets, we don't know. Maybe there's something there, whether it's going to be like notes, more of an equipment section. One of the other things we noticed just looking at backstory and personality is they got rid of, I have it here. We used to have personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws as an option in the character sheet. Kyle, I don't know, in your travels as a DM, I know you've worked with some other parties, but I never really used that or filled that out. I was always pretty solid with how I wanted a character to be, but perhaps for others that was really helpful to guide them through the character generation process, but it's not a huge loss for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it necessarily does. It needs a place on the character sheet. You know, it might be something that would be for certain players nice to have kind of a reminder, a visual reminder of like, you know, in a quick role play moment, you may be playing off character and suddenly realize, right, you know, looking back at my ideals or my flaws, let's lean into that a little bit more here. But realistically, I think for most players, obviously, especially in our crew, you know your character well enough, like, to play how you want the character to play. And if you don't follow a flaw that you previously had, that's okay. Like, you don't always have the same implications one way or another. You can kind of learn and grow and flex as you go along in your adventuring day. Lots of crazy shit happens in D&D. So it's not so crazy to do to kind of skew off of what you initially started when you were level 1 or 2. One thing I definitely see, agreeing with like needing a larger equipment and inventory space. I think it's always good to have a notebook regardless when you're playing D&D for like game notes, but also that's where you can throw your inventory. And maybe there will be a section on the back. But I very much like the way they have listed the spell slots and the prepared spell list. You can only kind of see a part of it, but you get the bulk of what they're going for. A lot easier to highlight what is concentration, ritual, and what needs material components. Seeing the spell slots availability, I just like how it's laid out. It's simple, but it's right there. So, you know, the bulk for the spellcasters in the group, you've got one page that's going to have all your things at the ready for you. Still needing a supplementary thing to know what the spells exactly are doing, obviously, but at least having a quick glance of concentration, ritual, material components, and your levels, I think is going to be useful there too.
I was also thinking perhaps there's more to come with individual character sheets based on class. Like, I'm not noticing anything here. Not that we need it, obviously, for everybody. Like, there's no section for animal companion, or there's no section for like familiar. So I wonder if they've looked at doing something like that specific to characters, like an extra character sheet if you are playing a druid who wild shapes. Bonus pages per class is what Leah in the background here put as a great idea that perhaps could come. Another call out just that we've seen recently that we know people were a huge fan of was Critical Role's Daggerheart system, having a sidecar option where you're able to use the sheet. I'll throw it up here in post, and that it can help explain this to a newer character as to what certain skills or scores or callouts for things do. There's not something here that is available yet. Perhaps it's something they're working on that they'll roll out when this goes live, but just something we wanted to call out.
Yeah, I totally agree with the sidecar Daggerheart thing. I think that was one of the most like interesting, innovative elements that came out of Daggerheart, besides the actual game itself. But like from a just purely looking at your character sheet, having some explanation into what some of these abilities are is incredibly useful. Not having to always rehash and re-explain things to players who have just poor memory or just don't use something very often. But there's also so much in D&D that goes outside of the bounds of what it necessarily may incorporate. So it's so broad reaching. It could be hard to define it all into a concise space. But I kind of jumping back a little, I like the idea of having unique pages for unique custom, like either not subclasses, but for the classes that are there. I think that would make sense. In the new version of the Paladin, they will have always prepared a find steed. So why not have a find steed stat block at the ready all the time in your character sheet without taking up a full block of your class features, or something in there, so you could always reference what the find steed block creature block would be. And similarly, jumping back to one of your characters as a wildfire druid, having the stat blocks at the ready for your wildfire spirit just at the ready. And it is a class feature, so in theory you could put it there. That's not a lot of space for potentially a lot of class features.
I was also thinking about that too for a section. We've heard a lot about the improved and revamped weapon mastery properties and all sorts of different weapons and what that allows, and the scaling as you level up, and all the different kind of tweaks and customizations you can do there. So yeah, hopefully there's an additional sheet per character. I think that'd be a really great addition.
Weapon mastery is a great point, actually. The weapon section is relatively small. Think of every fighter and barbarian we've had, and rogue in our party. They've got dozens of weapons for a pretty small weapon section, and each of those weapons, if you are a fighter, if you're a martial class, you're going to have weapon masteries to go along with it. Where are you going to put those on here? So it's a lot to try and condense. I understand. I sympathize. But I think that there have been third-party creators who have been able to make these things happen, and certainly those who have been able to make the custom ones, to your point earlier about fitting the class style even a little bit better. But it's an opportunity Wizards could hopefully expand into.
Kyle, whenever I see this, and I know some people play differently, but I just think of all of the erase marks, all of the pencil like scribbles on this with like the tiny health block. I know we graduated from pencils to using the like sheets. We put in the plastic sheets, and then we'd use dry erase markers on. Yeah, that was always so fun. And then of course people are going to play online and digital, and so this would be maybe a little easier for them, but so fun to see how many different ways you can use a character sheet.
I have one last thing I want to kind of highlight here, because I think it is somewhat controversial. Do you prefer big modifier or big score?
Okay, I'm pretty big on this. I think I go big modifier. Let me check my D&D sheet. I think that's how I do it.
I think in D&D Beyond, it's big score first, modifier second. That's how I like to play. That's how the old sheets was your larger. Well, that's how I input mine, would be large score number and then your modifier smaller, even though your modifier is the one that matters. But,
it's so funny. I'm like, which one do I prefer? I've had big B modifier.
Really?
That's, I think, what I've always done. Do I have my old sheet here? Yeah, let me check my OG Valentine sheet.
Her eyesight is bad, therefore larger modifier is easier.
Oh, but look, when you first statted my Valentine sheet, you did do stat big and then little, but then the circle call out was a modifier. So interesting. We were using a third-party sheet, so that's maybe a little cheating. It's not like the same. But hey, if you want an idea, you don't want to get pencil marks everywhere, use these little plastic ones. They were great. All right, Kyle, any closing thoughts here? I mean, we're excited to see all the stuff. I mean, we're going to maybe cover more as it gets rolled out. Love all of the new artwork. And I should say, I really wanted to call out, because I pulled them up here, the designer of that sheet themselves was Richard Witters. Hope I'm saying your name right. We'll link them in the description. They were previously the art studio lead for Dungeons & Dragons, so I'm not sure if they're affiliated with Wizards anymore, but just wanted to give a shout out. Saw that online and really wanted to give them their kudos there.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this new edition, or this expanded edition of 5e, whatever they end up wanting to call it. I want to roll already lots of elements, and I kind of already have taken little bits and pieces from the Unearthed Arcana into the game we've been playing now. And I'm just really looking forward to some of these changes. I'm glad they're listening to the community on some things. Still room to grow in others, but it's just really exciting to move forward with it.
Hey, if you like D&D, please subscribe to the channel. We got so much more coverage of D&D as it continues to evolve. We've got previous videos on how to run campaigns. We have a new actual play campaign that's running right now. We've started from like level 2, 3, and we're now at, I don't even know, 5 or 6. You can catch up at that. And we have over 100 episodes of our original first campaign, and that starts out at like level 10 after we switch from playing at the table to online, and goes all the way up to, what were we, Kyle, 19, 18?
You would have leveled to 19 at the end.
So you can see, did we survive that? Is that why we didn't level to 19? Who knows? You have 100 episodes to find out if you watch it. But that's all for us. We'll say goodbye here.